If you're thinking about buying a cabin here in Branson, one of the first questions you're probably asking is, can this actually pay for itself? And I get that question all the time, especially from people who are planning to come down a few times a year, but they don't want the property just sitting empty the rest of the time. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through how this actually works, what most people get wrong, and what I would personally look for if I was trying to make a smart decision. And stick with me because toward the end, I'm going to break down the exact type of property I think makes the most sense right now. Hey, you guys, I'm Jason with Great Branson Homes. If you're new to the channel, we talk about all things real estate when it comes to Southwest Missouri and specifically Branson and Table Rock Lake. If you're thinking about relocating here or buying a short-term rental investment or maybe a second home, like a lake home or something, you're landed in the right spot. So I apologize for my voice. I am a little under the weather today with some sinus stuff going on, so I'm going to do the best I can to get through this video for you today. We do release all new videos every single Monday, so if you want to click the subscribe button, that would really help out the channel, and you can click the bell for notifications so you don't miss out on any new content. I've got a couple of different playlists for short-term rental investors and for more people that are looking to move here personally to relocate to Branson. You can check those out. At the end of this video, I'll have a end card, and then I'll also put a link up here at the top for you guys to check out both of those playlists. All right, so this video is going to cover the topic of, can I actually buy a property in Branson and have it pay for itself? And the answer to that question, it really depends, because I know a lot of couples will sit down and they'll start dreaming about, should we move here? How much is it going to cost? Will it pay for itself? People who vacation in Branson year after year, and they start finding themselves in that season of life where they maybe are thinking about coming down to have a second home here and use it, personally, while they're doing their regular vacationing, and then rent it out when they're not here. Can you still do that? So there's, the short answer is yes. You can absolutely have a property that pays for itself, but I always ask the question back when I get asked that question, can it pay for itself? I always ask the question back to people, what does that look like to you? Because that can mean a few different things, right? Some people are maybe considering paying for itself, meaning I want it to pay for the mortgage. I don't want to have to, cut a mortgage check. And some people are saying, no, I want it to pay for everything. I want it to cover all of my operating expenses, management, the whole enchilada, and just, basically break even on it. And other people, I think, are thinking about it more like an investor would, where they're actually wanting to make some income off of it. And our season here definitely supports all three of those outcomes, depending on what you buy, condition wise, but most importantly, I think how it's managed, honestly, is the biggest separator, the biggest identifier. I can walk through a property and I can look at it, and I can look at all of the furnishings and the decor and the finishes, and I can tell pretty quickly this one's going to be a winner, and I can look at who's currently managing it, and I can tell you pretty quick if they are, doing above the norm, below the norm, or if they're, just kind of average, right? Just because a previous seller, I always tell people this, just because some people have been operating it, the seller has a revenue sheet for you that is, let's say, pulling in 30,000 last year. That doesn't mean you're going to do 30,000. If you just took over the keys from somebody and you decided to get your own management in there, it doesn't mean that you're going to also do the same thing and have the same outcome. I just always stress to people, it really doesn't matter all that much about the revenue history if you have no real game plan to take the property moving forward and being able to do the same or better with it. Then it really won't matter at all. And honestly, even when you change hands and you're keeping with the current management, could sometimes mean that you might be able to keep the reviews, but sometimes you have to start a new listing over. Oftentimes you have to get your own listing, and just getting new pictures. Yeah, the reviews don't transfer over sometimes, but if you have a property manager that's already been managing that property, then the transition is a lot more smoother. Okay, but if you're going to manage it yourself or get another manager in there, then it's going to have to basically start all over again. And that can sometimes take 1 or 2 years for you to, or more, to be able to kind of ramp up, a little bit. Your first year on a short-term rental on any property is not going to be your best year. It's going to take some time to get the wheels greased on it, to be able to build some repeat clientele, to get some SEO and AEO, answer engine optimization, is something that is kind of new to the field. A lot of people are familiar with SEO, with search engine optimization, but a lot of people are searching for properties using ChatGPT and Gemini and all kinds of other AI platforms now. And so being able to show up, being recommended on those is a whole other thing that we could talk about in another video. But I'm just saying, like, your managers should really have a game plan on how to be able to show up on Google, on all of the social media platforms that they're getting actively involved in, with a social media team that is responsible for diving in and being able to answer people's questions when they're getting involved in the Branson Buzz and Table Rock Lake Group and all of the short-term rental groups that are available around the Branson area. These private groups where you get a lot of people who frequent Branson and are starting to plan months out, and they're engaging and looking for people in the platform to help them make a decision on where they're going to stay. And sometimes that's where they start, rather than going to Airbnb and VRBO or some of these other portals to look for listings. They're wanting feedback and direct engagement from people who own or manage properties themselves. Sometimes, and usually, it's because they want to save the booking fees, if they can find somebody who will let them book direct. So there's a whole other gamut of being able to grab and learn how to get a market share of bookings off of these big platforms like Airbnb and VRBO. So let's talk about, where that most of these properties that you're going to find that will allow you to self-manage or use a third party property management, and being able to check off the box that it will cover, if it can pay for everything, your management and your operating expenses and your mortgage, then yeah, that'll definitely cover all the bases there. If you're looking to make income, then I definitely would tell you right now, honestly, unless you're all cash, unless you're mostly cash, if you're not putting a significant amount down, if you're trying to get into Branson and be as least leveraged into the property, meaning I don't want to put that much down, I want to try to go in with a second home loan and do 10% down, I'm going to finance 90% of the purchase price. Today's interest rates just aren't really able to cover the spread. It's eating up so much of people's revenue right now, and the prices have gone up here. Now we're still relatively cheaper than a lot of other markets in the United States as far as short-term rentals go. You can go buy a short-term rental in Branson. People from other markets still are very attracted to our prices here, but if you ask people locally here, they would say our prices relative to us, are astronomical. They're too high and they need to come down. And I agree that prices are softening. And so you have an opportunity to get a little bit of a deal on something, and a lot of a deal on other, areas. If there's a lot of inventory to choose from, you can certainly be able to have way better terms and way better leverage on the buy side today in Branson in 2026 than any other time that I have ever been in. I've been in real estate since 2017, and I've watched the market do nothing but go up and up and up and up and up. And now we're finally getting out of the seller's market. We are officially in a hot and heavy buyer's market here. And so, all that to say is that the prices still, even they're softening, but they're still not to the point where either interest rates have to come down or the prices have to come way down in order for somebody to finance probably 80%. So typically a lot of our short-term rentals are going to be condominiums, and a lot of these are non-warrantable condos. I've talked about this in other videos where you need to be at least preparing to put 20% down. And if you can have the budget and able to put more down, it's in your best interest to try to offset that mortgage payment so that you don't have to generate as much income to cover the mortgage. If you're cash, and you're coming into this market buying it with cash, then for sure there's plenty of other properties too that you're going to be in even a much better negotiating position in order to be able to get a better deal if you're cash for sure right now. But I've yet to find, unless you're talking about one of these real big outliers in our market that is just performing double what a property of that size and in that area normally does. That's what it takes in order to still finance 80% at probably 7 point something percent interest right now, and be able to walk away with breaking even or making some income. It's got to be doing almost double the revenue of what others normally do. So how do you do that? Really good management and having really above and beyond the amenities. The design is such a huge factor on what separates a property that's in a condominium area where all of the units themselves are the same exact square footage, the same bedrooms, baths, the layouts are all the same. So how do you separate from the competition? And it's becoming increasingly difficult to be able to perform higher. You got to really bring in somebody. If you or somebody within your sphere doesn't already know design, doesn't know short-term rental, what today's short-term rental buyers are looking for, then you need to consult with people who do and really adhere to their advice and their counsel on being able to spend some extra money on design and features, benefits, amenities and things that are going to make it pop. And that's just strictly to do with like the pictures online. And then being able to look at these obvious things when they're scrolling through on Airbnb and VRBO, these sites to look at properties, then it's like, oh, I've seen many of these other condos in this area, for sale, but this one just is a scroll stopper. You need to find those rooms and those spaces that are going to be scroll stoppers, right? And then those wow factors on because you can't, add a extra pool in a condo. You get whatever the amenities that the condominium area has. You can't, really go crazy a lot of times with any other things on your interior. A lot of people do movie rooms. A lot of people do like a game room, like a really over the top game room. They'll do, some kind of movie theme, some kind of an overall overarching theme to the property where every space kind of ties into that theme, but the color schemes are very, unique to each room, if that makes sense. And other people are still very attached to the farmhouse look. I will honestly say the farmhouse deal is very tired in my opinion. And then you'll see a ton of people still with the rustic timber theme that everybody, that's with the cabins that has like the antler, fixtures and the fans and the light fixtures in the dining room, or the bare smoky, kind of a theme to it, if you will, more of a southwest style, especially down in the cabins in Branson, in Stonebridge Village. I'm sorry. A lot of those have not ever taken the time to try to take the original furnishings that came with the property when they first got them stocked for the furniture, probably from like Rustic Timbers and Branson West down there does a lot of the cabins around here. And when everybody kind of goes to the same supplier for their furnishings, that means that everybody's properties start looking an awful lot alike. So you're definitely having to be very intentional about, maybe it's going to have to be a complete overhaul. Now, I'm not talking like kitchen and bathroom renovations and things, the bigger ticket items, as far as like people honestly don't care if your cabinets are painted or replaced, or if your countertops are granite or quartz, or if they're laminate. These are things on the resale value that I think somebody might appreciate, but guests don't care about these kind of things. It's really, I think, about the experience. I would invest in beds, because that is the primary experience. And when you think about when you go on vacation and you stay at an Airbnb, you're remembering how you slept, because for the rest of the time you're out vacationing. And for Branson especially, you're out in the town. You're out with your kids. You're doing all the things that you had on your agenda, and then you're coming home and you're doing a meal together, and then you're crashing for the night. You're not really even really spending a lot of time in the unit itself, except for to sleep. And so having extraordinary sleeping experience, having your beds feel like a cloud, it will be probably one of the big comments that you'll get on your reviews, besides cleanliness, is how they slept. So I always tell people, if you want to invest in anything on furniture remodel, is the beds. And if it's been like an older Airbnb, if they don't have bed bug covers on their beds, this is just an extra pro tip. I would definitely consider getting new mattresses, and then putting bed bug covers on them, just to protect your investment. Because taking over somebody's Airbnb that has not had bed bug covers for a number of years, as prominent as that's starting to get, definitely would be a very a good move on your part to be able to upgrade your sleep experience and secure your investment there, with those bed bug covers, because that can be very costly to have to do a treatment on those if you're not already aware. All right, I've blabbed on enough. I promised you guys that I would kind of go through some of the areas that I personally would invest in if I was wanting to find something that could pay for itself and maybe even make some extra income for you. So let's dive into the MLS here for a little bit, and then I'll actually underwrite one of these properties together with you using some AI, and be able to kind of let you walk through a scenario purchasing a property with all cash and purchasing a property using a loan. Okay, so let's dive into the computer and we'll check it out. All right, I'm in my MLS here, and I'm just doing a quick search for one of the prime areas that I always, show people when they're looking at cabins, especially in Branson. My favorites are in Stonebridge Village out here, and there's 35 for sale currently right now, actually. And yeah, we'll show you, zoom in here. So there's Branson, and then up here is Branson West. And right in between the two, just above Silver Dollar City, is Stonebridge Village. All of this master plan community out here on Ledgestone Golf Course. And then you've got the Forest Lake right here, and Then all of the rest of these cabins are by the lake, and then just before you get to the lake, out here and down in here. Now, this is a list of all the condos. So I'm sorry, I said 35 for sale, but there's actually a mix of just your regular condos in Branson. Here's one on Bells Avenue 95B, which we did a video on. Several of these one bedrooms I've already done. These cabins here, these one bedroom cabins can average, 25, 30,000 and up. Honestly, let me get a picture of one here. Yeah. You can go back and look at some of the videos that I've done just recently highlighting some of these cabins out here in Stonebridge. Here's another one for 219. So you can see these are just over 200,000. If your budget's between 2 and 300,000, these one bedrooms perform like 2 and 3 bedroom properties do. And that's what I was going back to what I was talking about, that the revenue needs to be able to double what other properties normally do. And these, everybody loves the cabins. People love staying in the cabins. These are kind of like duplex, where you get one bedroom on this side and one bedroom on the other side. And then your bedroom is upstairs there. Let's take a look at some others that I think would perform really well. Yeah, so Tall Timbers Camp is another one that I highly recommend you go check out. It's down in Hollister. Show you here, just right off of the 65 corridor going down into Arkansas, just south of Branson, off of the service road over here. This is a brand new development over the last little over a year or so, and the last phase is just getting wrapped up. All the lots are completely sold out, but you might be able to find something on the resale coming up this year. So keep an eye out for any of these here. I'll show you some pictures of Tall Timbers Camp. It's a very unique area with extraordinary amenities. Okay, you've got a beautiful drive going in with live water rolling over the streets, very tucked away into the woods. It really does feel like you're at camp. It's the best way that I can describe it, is you're in like a church camp. That's how I kind of grew up in the summers, was going off to these areas with all kinds of stuff to do while you're there. And a lot of people probably don't even ever leave the area because there's just so much to do. They've got water features, live water features. They've got a huge outdoor pool, an indoor pool, your pickleball courts, the basketball court. They've got food trucks on site. They've got other lakes where you can fish. They stock them with fish. They've got live entertainment that goes on throughout the main part of the season. There's a saltwater pool with like a slide that goes down into the the pool. There's paddle boarding and I mean, just all kinds of things for people to be able to do with hundreds of acres or surrounding it. And it's close to Table Rock Lake as well. So, these are some of the places, the newer places that are really killing it right now. I've got past clients who manage several out in this area. If you're interested in numbers on these, shoot me a message, leave me a comment down below in this video, and I'll be happy to set up some time to chat with you about the potential for Tall Timbers Camp. I'm going to be doing another highlight video now that most of the area is finished with construction. I've got some earlier videos while it was under construction. You can check those out in my vacation rental playlist. All right. One of my other favorite areas is here at Lantern Bay, formerly known as Lantern Bay. We as realtors still use Lantern Bay when we list them in the MLS, but it's now known as the Cove. And over here, right by Silver Dollar City, I've also done a highlight video on this area. You can check that out in our vacation rental playlist on Indian Point. Covered a lot of different areas on Indian Point. But this is a great area if you've got again a 2 to 250 budget. You can get a really good condo that will perform well here at Lantern Bay. This one is really remodeled well. They kind of took out the bar area and put a proper dining area right here. Um, they are smaller. They're, just under 900 square feet. But they do have big decks out on the patio out there. A lot of them do offer lake view of Table Rock revenue. Okay, here, revenue projections for this one. Let's look at this one. This is a projection sheet from Grand Welcome. And yeah, so the top range 29,000, low range 22,500. During COVID, these were doing 35, 37 thousand for ones that have been well established for a long time. But it's a good entry level place to get invested out there, and would definitely just want to run some numbers on something like this that you would be able to kind of see what I'm talking about if it would cover everything for you. So this one's asking 198. So let's run a quick scenario for this particular one at Woodpecker Lane. All right, I want you to underwrite a two-bedroom, two-bath condo in Lantern Bay for me, for my YouTube viewers, just to kind of let them see how this would run down if you were a cash buyer and assuming $29,000 gross revenue, that's rental revenue collected. Assume a 40% operating expense budget to cover utilities, insurance, taxes, supplies, maintenance and repairs, HOA, dues, all of it. And then add in say, a 20% management fee onto that. If they're all cash, what kind of ROI would that be if they were able to get $29,000 gross revenue on it? Okay, so here operating expenses 40%, which would be about $11,600 annually, then a 20% management fee. So add in another $5,800. That gives your total expenses $17,400. Now, if you're generating $29,000 of income, that's going to leave you with 11,600 net operating income. Since this is all cash, if you came in at, the property is, oh, let me tell them that. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to tell you that the property is listed at 198,000. Assume we had to get it for a full price offer, which I would never let my buyers do. But if they had to pay full price at 198, what would that look like for a cash on cash return? Okay, so cash on cash at 198,000 gives you a 5.86% annual return. If you paid full price at 198,000, use full service management and hit $29,000 in revenue, you're sitting right at about a 5.8% return as a cash buyer. So that if that helps you any to kind of give you an idea of what some of these properties can do. Now, the other thing that we need to figure out is if we had to pay full price and add in a mortgage to this situation. So let's do that. Now, let's redo this deal, but now let's assume that I'm going to finance this deal instead of paying cash. And I'm going to do 20% down at a 30-year fixed at a 7% interest rate. What would that look like on our numbers? The monthly payment on the loan is going to be roughly $1,054 a month. The annual debt service is $12,648 a year if you're getting a 7% interest rate and putting 20% down, 30-year fixed, okay? The cash flow was 11,600 and the NOI was 12,648 minus your debt service it's actually going to be negative here. Yeah. Cash on cash return is negative 2.65 and you're losing $87 every month. With a total of losing 1,048 a year if you got 7%. So you need to get an even better deal on this in order for it to break even. So Self-managing, of course, is the other option, um, or being able to get a much better deal on the sticker price or waiting for interest rates to come down. Okay. That's what I was talking about here right now. You need to find a two-bedroom that's, let's ask it real quick. So my options really in order to break even are tell me what price I would need to acquire this property at to just break even, and at what price I would need to acquire this property at today's interest rates in order to make even a 5% return on my investment annually. And then tell me what the interest rate would need to be like if I decided to wait. Maybe prices go up, I don't know. But if I decided to wait, at what interest rate also would this make more sense where I could get at least a 5% return on investment? All right, so it's saying here we already know the NOI is 11,600 at 7%. Your loan costs about 7.98% annually on the loan balance. With 20% down, that equals about 6.38% of the purchase price. Your break even is actually 181,700. So if you were able to get a seller to agree, in this case, the one is asking 198,000. If you could acquire it at 181,700, right? Then you would break even. Okay. In order to get a 5% cash on cash return, you would need to get the property at 157,000. Now that's quite a bit below where the sellers honestly, that $198,000 one that we looked at is one of the cheaper ones that's for sale. And a lot of them are still wanting to get like 200,000. So you're either needing to generate more revenue and get beyond 29,000 in order to help out. But I would say 29,000 right now is pretty aggressive in today's short-term rental market for those condos down there. What interest rate makes this a 5% deal at 198,000? So if you weren't able to get it at $157,000 purchase price, maybe waiting until the property the interest rate has come down to a more realistic price, this would be a 5% return on $39,600 down payment. So that's what the cash on cash return means. You're down your cash onto that property. How soon would you be able to get that back? Well, every year you're getting a 5% return on that cash that you put down on the property. Okay. The loan equals $158,400 that you're borrowing, right? So you needed payment factor equals about just over 6% annually. And so that corresponds to a 4.7, 4.8 interest rate on a 30-year fixed. Now, by the time, if we ever got to 4.7, 4.8, who knows how long it's going to take to ever get back to those numbers, if we ever get back to those numbers. Who knows where the prices will be on them, so it's always a moving target, really. But that's why I say the more cash right now in order to get involved in the market sooner, rather than waiting to see what happens with the market. Um, Usually the solution is keep saving and put more money down, and then it works out. Or learn to self manage if you can. If it's going to be more like I'm just going to be coming and staying for a couple of weeks out of the year, and then we want to rent it out, and I'm not really uh, close enough to effectively manage it myself, then maybe learning how to just get the bookings and um, leaving stay, the hosting of it to a co-host. A lot of people are doing this now where they're allocating the services of all the things that people need when they're actually at the property of a host. They're giving all of that responsibility to a co-host, and they're still the ones that are doing the marketing and advertising and the bookings, handling the bookings themselves, which you can honestly do from an app on your phone these days. And if that's something that you're still not interested in getting involved with, then full service management is really the only opportunity. And I'd say the average for a 2 bedroom, 2 bath will be about 20 to even sometimes 23%. You might find some people that might do it for like 15 to 18%, but I would check in with those managers to find out what all is included with the 15 to 18% to make sure that you're not getting nickel and dime on other things along the way. All right, I hope that was helpful for you guys. Certainly, that's not all of the places that I would recommend to buy in personally. Those are just some of the top three really that I like personally myself, and I've had experience in the past of helping other clients make that work for them in their situation. So I really hope that was helpful for you to be able to break it down in that way. If you want to book a Zoom with me and just talk a little bit deeper about your particular situation, if you're considering buying a short-term rental or a second home here that you just want to rent out when you're not vacationing here in Branson, reach out and book that Zoom with me one-on-one. We're getting lots of people subscribing to the channel, and I can't thank you enough for your support. It means the world to me. But yes, get on my calendar. We can book an hour Zoom one-on-one with me. That link is down in the description of this video. I'll also pin it down in the comments for you. So, all right, that's going to wrap it up for today, you guys. I will see you next Monday for another video. I'm Jason with Great Branson Homes. Follow for the local truth, not the hype.